At a high level, UVs are just a way that you wrap a 2D texture onto your 3D form. It works very much like this clothing pattern here. Start out with a 2D piece of cloth, add the pattern to it and cut it out, and then sew it back together to create the 3D form. So you go from 2D to 3D. With CG, you're just doing the opposite. You already have your model, your 3D form. You need to figure out where you have to add seams in order to be able to lay it out flat so that you can paint on it in 2D and then wrap that back on here. Not all texturing workflows require UVs, but most still do. So understanding UVs and how to lay out good UVs for your meshes is an important part of learning CG. All right, so let's hop over to Maya and take a look. So here's your 3D form. It's a really simple object in this case. Just try to manually sort of illustrate what is happening when you UV. And this is not the way that you UV, but this is to hopefully help make the concept make sense. So imagine that you have a cardboard box that's been taped along all of the edges and is completely sealed. We want to lay it out into a 2D form that's all connected. So every one of these 6 individual panes is connected to some other one. So basically what I want to do here is if I were to cut these 3 edges like this, then I could fold it along this edge as a hinge, right? So this piece here would fold up this way and create a flat plane like this. All right, so we're going to do that in the UV editor. So this is the 2D workspace. It's called the UV editor. Under Windows UV editor, in my case I have it pulled up as a saved layout, this one right here. If you're running a second monitor, I'd recommend just open the UV editor on the second monitor so you can make it nice and large. To start out here, I'm just going to basically put a 2D representation of this object over here. And for that, I'm going to use a camera-based projection, which is basically just a planar projection from the perspective of the camera. I'll talk more about that stuff later, but for now, just sort of know that this is a 2D representation of this 3D object. So if I move this around, this doesn't update or anything. It's just, this is a fixed point of what this looked like from that angle. Okay, and so what I want to do, again, is cut these edges out. So if I select the edge, those 3 edges that I talked about, and you can select them in either place because they share those edges, you can see, and then I'll just cut that out. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my texture border edges. That way you can see the bold edge indicates that it has a texture seam there, and that's just this icon right here. And then I'm going to grab the UVs, and this is just sort of a random guess to see if I actually get them. I didn't get them. I got the wrong ones. So I'm just going to hold Shift down. I'm going to invert that selection. So now I have the right one. And this is the same thing as me taking this and sort of flipping it up. So there you go, just like that. So it's a little bit sloppy and the shapes are getting lost a little bit, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. But just to understand what unfolding is, this is basically what the process. So same thing for these. If I wanted to get these pieces and sort of fold them out this way along this is a hinge, so this became a flat piece going out this way, I would do the same thing here. And you can use these interactive tools. And if I drag over this, it will cut it open, and then drag over that one, and it cuts it open. I'll switch back to UVs here, grab the 2 UVs. And so that is now the front piece of this. You can see there's a lot of distortion going on right now. And basically, the reason I know it's distorted is because when I look at the shape of this face here, it should be exactly the same shape over here. And when I see this one's sort of tapered in, and this one's nice and square. And if I look back at this one's very tall compared to how wide it is, right? So I've got distortion here. We'll deal with that later. I just want to make sure you understand the unfolding process. Okay, so the same thing over here. I'd want to be able to cut those 2 edges there. And again, I think in this case it's probably easier to go ahead and use these interactive tools. They just allow a little bit easier separation. So this way I can actually see which one goes with which. So I'm going to use that. I'll grab the UVs. Now I want to point this out too. If I grab that edge, notice that it selects 2 edges, and that might be confusing at first. You can see that I have 1 edge selected here, and there are 2 here. But if you look back at this, basically what you have here is these 2, let's say for instance these 2 share this as a common edge right here. So I have 2 separate pieces of cloth that share a common edge in the 3D form. So when I select that edge on the 3D form, it selects both of these edges on the 2D form. So that's basically what's going on there. So I can't move them based on edges because they have two separate pieces in the 2D view. So I need to go ahead and grab those at the UV level and then move those out. Again, same basic thing. I just kind of flip them out back to the side there. Okay, and so same thing goes for the bottom. So this is actually the back. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to fold this down to where it's flat with this pane. And then I'm going to grab all of those and flip those down. And I'll just keep bringing these down like this. So there you go, a very, very distorted, ugly version of this. And this is pretty quick to clean up, actually. I can just match heights across these and then match the horizontal here. So this is just pushing and pulling a little bit just to square them up. And you can see there. There we go. And so as long as these things are all flat and even, this is going to make a nice non-distorted layout. So to see distortion, I'm going to go ahead and click on this checker icon right here. To see this, you need to be in Viewport 2.0. This won't work in your legacy modes, but in Viewport 2.0, that'll turn right on for you. And let's just take a look at this face right here, because this is a really good one to illustrate the distortion problems. So here it is right here. And it's sometimes hard to see with that overlay, but you can see that that's the actual selected face. And notice that these don't look like square checkers, right? They're elongated. And if you look, again, the way you have distortion here is the shape of this face is not the same as the shape of this face. So this is a nice square, and if you look at the same face over here, it's a rectangle. So if I were just to grab those UVs and push them in until it became a square, you'll see that I'll get squares, just like that. All right, and so it's that basic same system through the whole thing to get this to be distortion free. That is now a good layout for the box. So we had to cut seams and then unfold that. And so I did that all manually. There are much better ways of doing that, but conceptually, hopefully that's really clear of what's happening when you're actually doing UVs. I'll get more into that in future videos.